Members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, all following this meeting via social media, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this urgent public meeting for today, Thursday, May 8th. This is public meeting number 15. At this time, I want to give a special welcome to the Honorable Minister of Finance, Ms. Marinka Gums, and her support staff. We have established a quorum of 10 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the members Roseberg and Lewis. I have received notices of lateness from the member Peterson. Does any member here present have any notifications? I do see that we have MP Lacroes. MP Lacroes, you have the floor.
A blessed afternoon, Madam Chair Lady, Griffier, Minister of Finance and her support staff, my fellow colleagues, and those listening via all social media. Madam Chair Lady, I'd like to make 2 points. One is I got a message from a taxi driver that was very concerned with a sign or big signs that were placed now at the lookout point saying private property, saying that this is one of their main stops for our tourists when they come in. So if the government could actually look into that and find out exactly what are the ideas with that, that would be highly appreciated. And then point two, Madam Chair Lady, I am somewhat under trifle when it comes to what exactly is the purpose of this meeting today at this time, due to the fact that it was requested as an urgent meeting, and it is since the 27th of February that this was requested. And today we are here, so kind of defeats the purpose. If it's an urgent meeting, then I think the rules of order also state when and how long it should take before that happens. But maybe some clarification to that would be highly appreciated. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacroes, for your notification. The next member of Parliament to speak is MP Kotai. MP Kotai, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to all my colleagues, the Honorable Minister, and those tuning in via social media. I would just like to take this time to briefly address an article recently published in the People's Tribune titled, U.S. Tariffs Could Slow Growth and Raise Inflation in Curaçao and St. Martin, Central Bank Warns. In light of the projected GDP contraction and anticipated rise in inflation, which is stemming from the ongoing trade war, I would like to ask the Minister, through you, Madam Chair, are we able to request the central bank's indulgence to encourage our local banks to consider a reduction in mortgage interest rates during this challenging economic period. This can definitely serve as a counterbalance of further diminishing of purchasing power of the salaries and would provide a much needed relief in time of heightened inflation. I do also acknowledge the proactive steps that are being taken, as mentioned by the Minister previously, an emergency task force comprising representatives of the Chamber of Commerce, SHTA, TEAT, and of course, Finance. But it is still, to my humble opinion, that such a measure would represent a meaningful institutional response within the financial sector. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Kotai. I see the next MP requesting the floor for notifications is MP York, to whom I give the floor at this time. MP York.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Minister, support staff, honorable colleagues, and the viewing public. Madam Chair, I would like to express my confusion with the proceedings to this point, because as uttered by the previous speaker, this meeting was called by my faction on the 27th of February under the status of an urgent public meeting, I urge a public meeting. According to the rules of order, this is about 4 times 24 hours. This is about 10 to 12 weeks ago. All of us signed it. And about a couple of weeks ago, one of the agenda points of this meeting was snuck into another meeting without any deliberation, a meeting to where our questions and our contributions were prohibited and limited, and we weren't able to ask all the questions we wanted to ask. Now we're having this meeting about 12 weeks after the request, and even the questions that were promised to be given in writing from a couple of weeks ago still are not answered. So here we are. Are we to pose the same questions from then without any answers? Are we supposed to new questions? What is the bedoeling of this meeting? So if anyone can give any clarity on that or any answers to the questions that were posed before, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York, for that notification. The next MP to speak is MP Doran. MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to you, my colleagues, those in the Tribune, the Honorable Minister, and a special good afternoon to the people of St. Martin that tune in. Madam Chair, I too would like to share my frustration in the manner in which Parliament has been managed and also the manner in which the Council of Ministers have been responding. I have in my hand, Madam Chair, a letter dated February 3rd, all tied to the budget. A letter dated February 10th, a letter dated February 21st, a letter dated March 3rd, actually, sorry, a letter dated April 4th, a letter dated April 17th, to which none of them have been responded to, Madam Chair, all tied to the budget. So, Madam Chair, through you, to the Minister, to the government, and also a question to you as the Chair of Parliament, waar zijn we nou mee bezig? How are we going to continue to hold the ministers accountable? How are we going to handle the people's business if this is the manner in which the Council of Ministers are going to continue to operate, Madam Chair? And in my humble opinion, directly or indirectly being enabled by the Presidium of the Parliament by not being able to answer questions for the people. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I look forward to a response.
Thank you, MP Doran, for your notification. Allow me at this time, by means of a notification, in fact, a few notifications, to congratulate the Global Catholic Church with the appointment, or election rather, of a new pope carrying the papal name of Leo XIV. I also say special congratulations to the Catholic community here on St. Martin. He is the first American-born pope, and thus, as you can imagine, it's a celebration for that country as well. I don't know if I have done so before, but in any case, I will do it again, and that is to extend words of congratulations to former Prime Minister, former Member of Parliament, Miss Sylvia Jacobs, with her appointment as Director of the Charlotte Brookson Academy, CBA. Like so many have voiced, I too believe that the appointment of Miss Jacobs as Director of this school is going to be a good thing for the school and carrying forward the vision based on which this institution was established. Having stood at or next to the cradle of this school, the coming into being of this school, I honestly believe that the appointment of Ms. Jacobs, as I said, would be a good attribute to the school and to education, and particularly that type of an educational program on St. Martin. And thirdly, a general comment, and as sometimes you would like to say, put it out there. And what I want to put out there to the ones responsible is a request that I got today again as I walked close by here, by this part of the market, and that is to please have the public bathrooms fixed. Of the bathrooms that are available, there is one in semi-working conditions for males and females. So I just want to put that out there, and I hope it is picked up by those responsible for the upkeep of that particular area. They are public bathrooms for our residents and guests, and as such, should, in my opinion, reflect a proper image. I have been asked if MP Ottley could have the floor for notifications, and I will allow you to do so at this time, MP Ottley.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good day to the Honorable Minister of Finance, her support staff, the viewing and listening public. It will be remiss of me not to wish each and every one of our nurses a happy Nurses Week. I think nurses have proven to be one of the pillars of this community and our country, especially through COVID-19. And as a former minister of VSI, it will be remiss of me not to wish them a blessed week. I don't want it to seem that only when there's a crisis we can recognize these nurses. So I use this moment, and I thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me this moment. And also, as a former boxer myself and gold medalist, I would like to congratulate the boxing team, Mr. Peterson and Mr. Flanders, for their gold medals they won in Curacao, returning to St. Martin as champions. Boxing is a sport that has been overlooked. Back in the day, it was something big in St. Martin, and I hope that we can now invest in this sport to bring it to where we can see a world champion on any pay-per-view one day. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Ottley. Members of Parliament, I will continue, but before doing so, want to respond to some of the comments made regarding the meeting. One, we did ask of the Cabinet of the Minister of Finance if we could have received the answers to the questions posed by members of Parliament previously before this meeting. However, that did not, or could not, I guess did not, take place. That's one. Secondly, asking for an urgent meeting, and once, according to the rules of order, if it's determined to be an urgent meeting and the presence of a minister is requested, the meeting has to be held when the minister or ministers can be present for the meeting. And thirdly, as I always remind the members of Parliament, you have the different possibilities when it comes to following up and asking questions of the ministers and requesting them to come in and even come in again, be it via question or otherwise. So those are the possibilities that one has to continue to keep the finger on the pulse of what is happening and answers to questions that the members of Parliament would like to have. And stating that, and then hoping that we would get a lot of clarification on the topic at hand from the minister as she addresses the questions posed by Parliament, by members of Parliament, as well as providing an update, on the topic at hand, namely the budget 2025 and the ratification process of this budget. So with those comments, I now go over to introducing the agenda point for this meeting, and that is an update from the Minister of Finance on the technical issues delaying the ratification and publication of the 2025 national budget. This is IS document number 655 of this parliamentary year, and it is dated February the 27th, 2025. Before going over to the agenda point itself, again, I wish to remind members of Parliament of the possibility for interruptions during public meetings of Parliament. And as always, I remind you that these interruptions should only be to, 1, seek clarification, 2, challenge assertions, or contribute additional information, and should always be brief remarks or questions without introduction. Going over to the agenda point, as I mentioned, it was on February 27th of 2025 that we received a request from the members Doran, York, Irion, Ottley, Lacroes, and Lewis with the request that an urgent public meeting of Parliament be convened to discuss the above-mentioned agenda point. The presence of the minister was also requested. I would have asked the requesters if they wanted to elucidate their request briefly. However, we have heard during the notifications several members give their opinion and their position, as well as comments on their requests that they have submitted. So I would now give the floor to the Minister of Finance, Ms. Marinka Gums, for her opening remarks, answers, and I am not sure whether a presentation is involved. No presentation is involved, so remarks and answers to questions posed by members of Parliament. Minister Gums.
Honorable Chair Lady of Parliament, honorable members of Parliament, Secretary General and support staff, members of the media, radio listeners, and all others under the sound of my voice, good afternoon and blessed day. I am here today to address the 2025 budget following an urgent request for my appearance before Parliament. On April 14th, 2025, I came to Parliament and provided an update along with a brief presentation outlining the issues at hand and the approach being taken. During that agenda point, several questions were posed by members of Parliament, and I will be addressing those questions today, while I initially indicated that the responses would be provided in writing, and they will. The Honorable MP Doran emphasized that questions raised during public meetings should be answered publicly, hence my presence. In light of the significance of the topic and relevance of this meeting to the budget, I find it appropriate to answer those questions publicly today as part of my update on the budget, and I will also ensure that the responses are shared in writing with all honorable members of Parliament. Before doing so, however, I would like to inform you that there has been a slight change in our approach to the budget process. This change is a direct response to the feedback received from Parliament, particularly the expressed desire to expedite the approval process. After consultation with all key stakeholders, including CFT, BZK, the Governor, and the Council of Advice, it was agreed that the most efficient way forward would be to submit a new version of the budget that incorporates only the 7 amendments already approved by Parliament. No other changes have been made. This step was necessary due to the legislative challenges previously presented, which prevented us from formally incorporating the amendments into the original budget and to expedite the process significantly. Given that the original budget as presented in January was unanimously approved by the members of Parliament in attendance, we believe that resubmitting it with just these 7 approved amendments represents the fastest and most practical path forward toward final approval. It is important to emphasize that government still intends to submit a budget amendment for the year 2025, which will address additional matters previously raised, such as funding relating to Teweyo and the SCDF. To clarify, the revised 2025 budget containing only the 3 memorandums of modification from government and the 4 approved amendments by Parliament was submitted to the Council of Advice on April 25th, 2025. We expect to receive their advice early next week, after which the budget will be sent back to Parliament for final approval. The only additional change made to this version is the inclusion of an emergency clause, which allows the budget to take immediate effect upon publication. I will now proceed with answering of the questions posed by the honorable members of Parliament. MP Ottley Madam Chair, it was stated that a new budget would be presented. However, this new budget will include not only the memorandums, my apologies, only the amendments approved by Parliament, but also additional amendments from government, such as those related to SCDF. Can the Minister clarify how this can be considered the same budget as before? Madam Chair, through you, as mentioned in my introduction, the new budget being submitted to Parliament is identical to the version previously submitted. It includes the government's memorandums of modification, as well as the amendments already approved by Parliament. The only change made is the addition of an emergency clause, which allows the budget to take immediate effect upon approval. This approach significantly streamlines the legislative process and provides the most efficient path forward toward the timely adoption of the 2025 budget. On April 25th, 2025, the revised draft budget was submitted to the Council of Advice with the highest priority. Taking into account the recent public holidays, we expect their advice to return soon, after which the budget can proceed to Parliament. Question by MP Lewis, who was very disappointed with the random amendments chosen. He stated, we were requested to come with this amendment by the minister, and now we are thrown under the bus. Specifically, what was wrong with the amendment that caused this budget not to be ratified on time? Madam Chair, through you, the issue with the amendments was explained in detail in my presentation on April 14, 2025. To be clear, it wasn't solely the amendments randomly chosen that has caused a delay in the budget being ratified. As previously stated, all 7 amendments had technical and legislative issues, making it difficult to incorporate into the budget. I move on to comments/questions by MP Doran, who remembers in December 2024, he mentioned hartstikke spoed is zelden goed, and he remembered requesting an hour to review the documents, which they received, but were rushed. On April 14th, he heard the minister mention if there were no amendments, there would be no issues with the budget. But he remembers a colleague, MP, saying numbers are wrong in the budget. Additionally, concerning the examples that were given of what went wrong with the amendments, he remembers that a 3rd round was given to MP Lacroes to adjust the amendment based on consultation with the minister. And according to the Honorable MP, he finds it unfortunate that Parliament is to be blamed, and he hopes that the minister can take some kind of accountability for what happened. Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to clarify that at no point did I state Parliament is to be blamed. As previously stated, both the memorandums of modification from government and the approved amendments from Parliament have issues in them. It appears there's still some misunderstanding among some members of Parliament. The issue was never about the figures or the fact that the amendments were budget neutral. The core of the problem lies in how the amendments were drafted and presented in the document, which led to legislative inconsistencies. Therefore, my previous statement that amendments do not necessarily need to be budget neutral was not the cause of these errors. This was clearly explained and demonstrated during my presentation. Sorry. Madam Chair, another question by MP Doran, who asks, did this budget go back to legal affairs for legal vetting and verification? The minister's response to him was, at that time, was that it was not necessary. Madam Chair, through you, I do not recall ever mentioning that it was not necessary as stated by MP Doran. Nevertheless, the initial budget presented to Parliament did go to legal affairs for legal vetting. According to MP Doran, next question, today we learned that SCDF will be included in the new budget, but we have no updates on revenue generating measures that were promised to us 6 months ago. Sorry. Through you, Madam Chair, SCDF will be included in the amended budget for the year 2025 as communicated to Parliament through my letter dated March 3rd, 2025, Div 5406. As stated in my introduction, the current budget coming to Parliament will only have incorporated the 7 amendments approved by Parliament. Next question. The minister stated Parliament does not want to approve the end text that was submitted. I want to know which Parliament the minister is referring to, as the MP does not remember having been presented with this. He only saw a letter. Was it that the chair of Parliament did not want to approve the end text, asked the honourable MP, or was it the members of Parliament's refusals to approve it? Madam Chair, through you, in accordance with the draaiboek voor de toestandkoming van wet en regelgeving van Sint Maarten, the process of establishing an eindtekst involves, in essence, the relevant ministry or department working in collaboration with the Department of Legal Affairs and Legislation, YZNW, to draft the eindtekst. Once finalized, this draft is submitted by YZNW to the Chair of Parliament. Following this, the griffier reviews the eindtekst. If it is deemed legally and technically correct, the Chair of Parliament proceeds to send the eindtekst to government for ratification. This process is administrative in nature. In this case, the eindtekst was not submitted by YZNW due to legal issues in the amendments themselves, and as a result, the eindtekst was not sent for ratification to government by the Chair of Parliament. Therefore, the current approach has simply been to incorporate the 7 amendments and resubmit a new budget to Parliament for approval. Next question. The Honourable MP made countless calls for government regarding this budget since February, March, April, and now the Netherlands has to come and reprimand us. The Honourable MP stated that this presentation is too little too late. Through you, Madam Chair, I can acknowledge that I could have come to Parliament sooner. Nevertheless, the reason for the delay was that we were exploring various ways to gain a full understanding of the issues at hand and to verify whether there was in fact a substantive problem. These issues are legal in nature, and while they may appear to be a simple fix from a financial perspective, they are not always easy to fully grasp, which is what led to such a delay. I have done my best to present the matter as clearly and transparently as possible, yet it appears that some members of Parliament still do not fully comprehend the core of the issue. For this reason, I did not rush to Parliament prematurely. It was important to first gain a clear and accurate understanding of the situation before providing answers and updates in order to ensure that the information shared with Parliament is correct and complete. In the past, certain matters were able to be resolved administratively and in close collaboration with all relevant parties. Unfortunately, this year, despite those efforts, the issue could not be resolved in the same manner. This is due to a combination of factors and complexities that have arisen throughout the process. I move on to questions by MP Irion, who stated, Madam Chair, it is unfortunate that essential matters such as vacation pay, justice workers' payments, vendor obligations, civil servant bonuses, and subsidies are now at risk. Additionally, advice documents are reportedly piling up, preventing the government from moving forward. I would like to add that MP De Wever also inquired about the vacation pay to be paid out in June to the civil servants. Madam Chair, through you, government employees will receive their 8% vacation pay in the month of June. As previously stated, we have included the emergency clause in the budget, which means it will go into effect immediately upon publication, expected before mid-June 2025. Additionally, the legislation pertaining to the vacation pay has already been presented to Parliament, and by that time will most likely have been approved as well. Next question by MP Irion, who stated, we have to hear on the road or on the radio about a novel solution. Parliament was not consulted on this. Today, we have to find out that MPs Ottley, Lewis, and Lacroes made mistakes, but they were given advice from the government. Through you, Madam Chair, MP Irion was actually the first to mention the term novel publicly. even before this was communicated outside the government. I'm not sure where the MP heard it from, but I can confirm it was not announced on the radio prior to the MP having mentioning it. As I've mentioned before, this is not about assigning blame. What matters is that we work together to fix and clarify the process to prevent similar issues from occurring in the future. I have stated various times all amendments had legal issues. At the core, we need to really reach a clear agreement on various points. One, should amendments from Parliament include adjustments to the totals as stated in the national ordinance, yes or no? They should be consistently agreed upon by Parliament, the Department of Legal Affairs, the and the Governor. Two, should amendments submitted by MPs include all financial implications and list every impacted page, yes or no? The second expectation seems quite unrealistic, especially for an MP, a parliamentary staff member, or a ministry other than finance. And three, should we commence with the utilization of templates for Parliament members, yes or no? These are precisely the kinds of procedural uncertainties that must be addressed and resolved in order to prevent a similar misunderstanding in the future. As a way forward, and considering this is currently a project under the TWO, I would propose broadening the scope of that project to include this specific aspect. This would allow the involved team to engage all relevant stakeholders and develop clear, practical, and realistic guidelines for the parliamentary amendment process. If expanding the scope of the current TWO project is not feasible, I recommend assigning this task to SOAB so that it can be carried out in a structured and impartial manner. Question 3, I think the novelle did not work. I heard the chair said, according to the MP, the Parliament prefers this novelle route. Madam Chair, through you, the novelle ultimately did not work as a solution, largely because it is not a mechanism that has been previously used within our legislative process. When unfamiliar or uncommon approaches are introduced, they often lead to further questions and uncertainty. It's important to note that the use of the novelle was proposed based on advice from various stakeholders who believed it could serve as a way to resolve the issue. However, in practice, it did not provide the clarity or resolution that was hoped for. Question 4, it is about the representation of Parliament, and today we have the new record of the latest budget ever. Madam Chair, through you, the Honourable MP may have forgotten that he himself presented a budget 9 months later in the year, namely the budget for the year 2021 was presented in September of the year 2021. So I have not yet broken his record. I would also like to remind the Honourable MP that the 2025 budget was unanimously approved by Parliament in January, an achievement that stands as a record in and of itself. Unfortunately, the issues related to the inaccuracies in the amendments were not something we could have anticipated. These matters arose despite everyone's best efforts and were never intentional. Next question. What legal basis is there to make amendments to the budget and only send a letter to Parliament after making that payment and executing? Madam Chair, through you, in April 2024, the then Council of Ministers approved the payment to Carnival, and it was recorded under the marketing budget. Also, I would like to confirm to the Honourable MP Ottley that this amount was paid to SCDF. For Carnival 2025, the same approach was taken following the exact procedure used by the previous government. Only after the fact was it pointed out that this support should have been classified as a subsidy rather than as a marketing expense. It's important to note that government has been subsidizing Carnival for many years, so this practice is not new. However, in order to ensure proper classification moving forward, the decision was made to communicate and state that we will adjust this going forward and reflect this as a subsidy in the Budget Amendment 2025, Budget 2026, and future budgets. Therefore, when the Honorable MP questions the legal basis, I must emphasize that this is precisely the same method used last year under their administration. The matter at hand is a budgetary reclassification, nothing more, nothing less. And again, this is not about placing blame. Sometimes procedural steps have been consistently handled incorrectly for years, and once you become aware of that, the only responsible thing to do is to improve. That's why we're committed to correcting these issues in future budgets.
Minister of Finance, with your indulgence, I'll allow MP Irion to make an interruption at this time. MP Irion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for good afternoon, all. Just for quick clarification, the misclassification of the Carnival, just want to confirm. So in budget 2024, it was budgeted 600,000 guilders for Carnival. Because if you're saying it's a misclassification, I can understand that. I just want to get it clear. So in budget 2024, which you're operating on, the Carnival was budgeted for 600,000 guilders.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, MP Irion. And I'll give the minister a minute or two as she seeks to respond to the interruption.
Thank you for
Minister, you may
the
continue.
interruption. In the budget 2024, there was no post for subsidy for Carnival. It wasn't.
Minister and MP, let's make sure we still do this meeting according to. So, Minister, you gave an answer to the interruption as raised, and now you may proceed with your answers.
Thank you. In the minister's presentation, the impression is given, next question actually, that the issues we are facing are due to the mistakes Parliament made, but this is incorrect. The minister herself mentioned that now we have to include Teweo in the new budget. However, this was already known. Teweo should have been included in the budget 2025 already, which means the submitted 2025 budget was incorrect. So the amendments were not the issue. The budget is the issue. Through you, Madam Chair, with regard to the Teweo funds, I would like to note that the Honorable MP who previously served as Minister of Finance is well aware that Teweo letters are corresponding funding requests are submitted and received throughout the year. It is therefore the responsibility of the respective ministries to inform the Ministry of Finance in a timely manner of any expected Teweo funding so that it can be appropriately incorporated into the budget. In this case, it was not known during the initial budget preparation that the Ministry of VSA would secure an additional $2.3 million in Teweo funding. This request was only made in 2025, and as is standard, the ministry had to await a formal response. Fortunately, approval was subsequently granted. Therefore, no, the Teweo funds in question were not previously known. That said, the absence of this specific Teweo funding in the original budget does not render the budget incorrect, as these funds are treated as in and out items, having a net zero on the overall budget balance. However, in order for the ministry to utilize the funds, they must be reflected in the budget. As such, whenever amendments are introduced and additional funding becomes available, the Teweo figures should be updated accordingly to ensure the budget remains as accurate and complete as possible. As stated previously, and for clarification, just as SCDF, this too will be included in the amended budget for the year 2025. Next question. Did the government make advices based on revenue from Teweo that was not budgeted for in 2025? Through you, Madam Chair, if the Teweo funds are not included in the budget, they cannot be utilized prior to inclusion in the budget amendment. This issue has also arisen in previous years. The previous workaround was for Teweo to pay the entity directly, thereby circumventing the budgetary restriction. This situation underscores the importance of simplifying the budget amendment process. Delays in incorporating such funds can directly impact on the timely execution of projects, which is something we must work on to avoid. Next question. The MP stated he heard that advices were sent to the governor to be signed. Can he get confirmation on that? Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to ask for clarity on which advices the MP is referring to so that I can answer him properly. Next question. MP Lacroes said he was misled, as stated by MP Irion. And according to MP Irion, he was right. In December, Parliament was misled. He asked specifically about Soul Beach and how this festival is going to be paid for. It was said that the government is going to pay for Soul Beach. Now we are hearing in the media that Soul Beach is partially being paid for by concession fees from the port. Please give me the exact details on how Soul Beach is paid. Through you, Madam Chair, the government is indeed covering the costs related to Soul Beach. The concession in question are a form of government revenue, similar to taxes, casino fees, and lottery proceeds. Therefore, if the payment is being made from concession funds, revenues that are due to the government and go into the general fund, it is still effectively being paid for by the government. Next question. Did the government give us the right information and the way forward, give Parliament also the detailed budget? Through you, Madam Chair, before my tenure as Minister of Finance began, the process of in-clapping, presenting the budget at a higher, more aggregated level had already been initiated as part of efforts to streamline and improve the budget process. Therefore, the Honourable MP's suggestion to now provide a more detailed budget is somewhat puzzling, as he should be well aware that the in-clapping approach was adopted with the intention of improving efficiency as it pertains to the budgetary process. That said, as previously mentioned and in line with the applicable legislation, the budget will continue to be presented at the economic category level in line with the legislation. Next question, are there any potential instructions coming from the Netherlands, and is the bond affected in any way? Through you, Madam Chair, I cannot speak on behalf of the Netherlands. What I can say is that we are doing our utmost to have the budget approved and published as soon as possible. Throughout this process, we have kept both BZK, CFT, and Parliament informed of the developments and the current status. I now move on to the questions posed by MP De Wever. Can the Minister explain what she means by the 1% vacation allowance to be paid in June? I want clarity as to whether the full amount will be paid because she stated 1%. Through you, Madam Chair, when I referred to the 1% vacation allowance, I was speaking about the increase of 1%, going from 7 to 8, bringing the total to 8% for vacation allowance to be paid out prior to mid-June 2025. Next question, how soon can we expect to have the budget come back to Parliament? Through you, Madam Chair, as previously mentioned, the budget reflecting only the incorporation of the 7 amendments was submitted to the Council of Advice on April 25th, 2025. It is expected to be returned to Parliament by the end of next week. I move on to questions by MP York.
Minister Gums, with your indulgence, I give the floor to MP Peterson for interruption.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A good afternoon to yourself,
Good
Minister,
afternoon.
to your staff, and to my colleagues, to Cliffy, everybody else tuned in. Minister, when I walked in, I believe you said that there was no budget for Carnival in 2024. I would like some clarity on that. Was there no budget, and if so, how were they paid? That's the introduction for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Peterson. Minister, can you respond to MP Peterson's interruption? Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, MP Peterson, for your question. Indeed, there was no budget for SCDF for the year 2024, and however, it was paid through the marketing budget.
Minister Gums, you may continue with the answers.
Questions posed by MP York. The honorable member asked, while the explanation provided points to the amendments as the cause of the delay, he is left wondering if the delay was indeed solely due to the amendments. Why did it take 3 months to receive a clear update from government? Through you, Madam Chair, the issue originated from the handling of the amendments, and I have previously outlined the various approaches we explored to resolve the matter. The process involves multiple stakeholders, each with differing perspectives and interpretations, which has understandably added a layer of complexity to the situation. Next question, if the budget comes back in June, what happens with the amendment revenue generating that was promised in May? Through you, Madam Chair, as we have adjusted the approach, the budget is expected to now return in May 2025. The budget amendment process is scheduled for submission in the third quarter of this year. The main focus on revenue measures by this government will, however, be incorporated into the 2026 budget, particularly as a result of the delays, understandably so, as experienced with the 2025 budget process. Next question. More than half of the projects were mentioned from CAPEX 2025. Now the budget coming in June, what happens to CAPEX? Through you, Madam Chair, given the delay in the budget, it is realistic to expect that part of the capital expenditure, CAPEX, may need to be shifted to the 2026 budget. This is primarily due to our dependence on the inclusion of our loan from the Netherlands and the approval of CFT. Naturally, the CFT assesses the feasibility of executing the proposed expenditures within the current year before granting its approval. Next question, why does it need 6 months to fix a handful of amendments? Through you, Madam Chair, my sentiments exactly. Honorable MP, however, as I previously stated, we explored various ways to address the issue. The legislative process within government involves specific steps that must be followed, and as such, certain matters simply require the time they need to be properly and lawfully handled. But I agree with the MP. However, to prevent this from happening again, the reason why we need clarity and guidelines that all stakeholders agree with to prevent this from happening again. Next question. The honorable member expressed concern that the gravity of the matter may not be taken as seriously by government as it should be. Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to assure the honorable member of parliament that this matter has been taken very seriously. We have explored various options and continue to do so. This is precisely why the decision was made to submit the budget, including only the 7 amendments. In doing so, we are essentially resubmitting the same budget that was presented in January and unanimously approved by Parliament. Nothing has been changed apart from what was already formally adopted. This approach is expected to be the most efficient and effective path forward. Final approval, as it minimizes delays and avoids long debate over any additional changes in the budget. I now move on to a question by MP Lacroes, who have asked numerous times to have meetings to generate revenue. 0. According to the MP, he heard 0, but we're cutting, but nothing paying. Madam Chair, through you, I remain open and look forward to the meeting regarding revenue generating measures and would definitely attend this once it is called. A question again by MP York. The honorable member expressed concern about the lack of proper communication and the absence of accountability in that regard, emphasizing that basic communication, such as a phone call, was not exercised. Through you, Madam Chair, I want to make it clear that I take my responsibility to this Parliament and to the people very seriously. I always aim to communicate openly and transparently. When I come to Parliament, I do so with purpose, to provide accurate, well-informed answers based on facts, not assumptions. In this particular case, 2 letters were sent to Parliament informing the members of Parliament on the issues. It took some time to get full clarity on the exact nature of the issue. I will not come before Parliament prematurely or to speculate without proper understanding. Once I had the facts, I made it a priority to be here and address the matter head on. Yes, communication is important, and I agree. A call or a message is free, but meaningful communication must be based on substance, not just presence. I stand committed to engaging this Parliament with integrity, preparedness, and respect, because that's what the people of St. Martin expect and deserve. A question by MP Lewis. Information given today is misunderstood by the public as the amendment of Lewis, Ottley, and Lacroes is used as an example. The public will think we did the incorrect thing. Through you, Madam Chair, as previously stated, and as included in the presentation, we showed examples of 3 amendments. The purpose was to illustrate the different types of errors that occurred. It was never intended to single out anyone. The examples presented were from the Ministry of Justice, MP Myers, and MPs Lacroes, Lewis, and Ottley. While I could have reviewed all 7 amendments, the 3 selected adequately represented the types of issues found across all of them. Madam Chair, the good MP's sentiments are noted. However, the reason MP Lacroes, Ottley, and Lewis's amendment was specifically used to illustrate the issue of including totals is because it was the only one where that particular issue occurred. The question here shouldn't be whether your amendment was the reason the budget is delayed, because truthfully, all amendments were not only substantiated, but approved. The issue with all 7 is having them be legally incorporated into the budget. That is a problem, not the amendments on their own. I trust this brings clarity to the public at large and to the honorable MPs. And lastly, I move on to the question posed by MP Myers. Could you give me when, since we became a country, when was a budget presented on time with the legislative timeframes? Madam Chair, through you, unfortunately, this has not been the case since we became country. The country has never had a budget enacted prior to the start of the new year. However, we will continue to strive towards achieving this goal. This includes making ongoing improvements to the budgetary process to ensure greater efficiency, transparency, and accountability. I would like to make it clear that having a budget unanimously approved and/or on time is not for me as the Minister of Finance to have a notch on my belt, but for the greater good of the country and its people. We all know what is at stake in not having a budget approved timely, from the commitments to our civil servants, their much expected increases in vacation allowance, the indexation, our teachers, our frontline officers, CapEx investments, and critical subsidies that support our most vulnerable. Madam Chair, this is not just about numbers on paper. It is about lives, livelihood, and the future of our country. When a budget is delayed, it is the people who pay the price. That is why I, as Minister of Finance, am not here to protect a political agenda. I am here to protect the interests of the people of St. Martin. I am standing here to do what is right, not what is easy. I stand with our civil servants who are long overdue for what they deserve. I stand with our vendors, our youth, our small business owners, and every citizen who expects better and is entitled to better. This is our collective responsibility. So, I call on all members of Parliament and every stakeholder to rise above politics, to act in unity, and to deliver what the people have entrusted us to do. Let history record that in this very moment, we chose progress over delay, service over self, and country above politics. Honorable Chair Lady, this brings me to the end of the presentation, and I look forward to any additional questions or clarifications needed.
Minister of Finance, Minister Gums, thank you for your answers and elucidations given. I am now going to adjourn for 5 minutes, and we will continue with this meeting. Meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We just had a brief adjournment of this public meeting of Parliament following the answers and elucidation provided by the Minister of Finance on the ongoing matter of the ratification of the Budget 2025. At this time, it is the possibility for members of Parliament who indicate their desire to do so based on the speakers list to speak on the topic, ask further questions if necessary, and the first person to do so is MP Doran, to whom I give the floor at this time. MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Once again, good afternoon to one and all. Special welcome to the Minister of Finance, and a special good afternoon to the people of St. Martin that are tuned in. Madam Chair Lady, I have a few questions which goes as follows, through you to the Honorable Minister. Will the government make any expenditures or payment based on the proposed 2025 budget despite its lack of ratification? What legal basis is the government using to justify any expenditures beyond exceeding the 50,000 guilders made in the last couple of months? Through you, Madam Chair, again, if any payments above this threshold has been made, where do they align with the constitutional provisions within the Kingdom Financial Supervision Law? Next question. Can the Minister of Finance provide Parliament with an official statement regarding how the government is operating the finances during this period? So I'm talking about from January to now. Madam Chair, these are questions that I sent in writing months ago. Haven't received any kind of indication of a response, so therefore I'm asking them here during this session in hopes of a change. Next question through you, Madam Chair. With regards to the jubileums, how many civil servants will reach the jubileum milestone 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, or 45 years of service between January 2024 and December 2025? And how will this payout be accommodated without the ratification? Are all these jubileum payouts on hold based on the fact that the 2025 budget has not been ratified? If so, what are some immediate actions that can be taken by the government in order to facilitate this inconvenience that our civil servants might have to go through, given the fact that the budget has not been ratified? Through you, Madam Chair, what is the projected total of payout for jubileums in the milestone of the fiscal year 24 and 25? Will the full amount of the 2025 jubileum payments be explicitly reflected in the forthcoming 2025 budget, the budget 2025 2.0? Will the multi-year budget framework from 2026 and beyond reflect the recurring costs of the jubileum payments? Through you, Madam Chair, will the jubileum payments be affected under the same legal basis as the vacation pay, thereby ensuring equal legal certainty? And also, through you, Madam Chair, I would like if Parliament can be provided with a timeline for the drafting of the execution of the landsbewaardening, bevordering, herwaardering, jubileum milestones, LBHAM, that will give the effect to the jubileum payments. Through you, Madam Chair, I look forward to clarification on these questions before I proceed with other questions that I have. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Doran. I await the members of Parliament who will sign the speakers list, and I then will continue with giving the floor to the members of Parliament. Member of Parliament Irion, you have the floor.
Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, colleagues, Minister and her support staff, and the viewing public. Minister, in your presentation, I didn't have much questions initially, but then during your presentation, more questions arose. And it also brings me back to a meeting that we had, and after that meeting, you, myself, and MP Lacroes were right in the corner speaking, and MP Lacroes, he made it clear. He said at that point in time, Minister, let's just get it over with, come back with the budget, you'll have the support at that point in time, and just keep it real with us, that's the word he used, and we'll get it done. That was 3 months ago. This meeting was called on February 27th. We could have also just said, or we could have, as a member of members of parliament, at the very least, the minister could have said to you, Madam Chair, hey, we got your request for this meeting, but we are busy exploring such and such and such. Not that 3 months after the fact, and countless questions posed to the minister, that today, 4 months later, we barely get answers again. Last time the minister was here, the minister said Teweyo and Carnival would be inside of the budget. Today, the minister says, no, we had a slight change of plan, which is not a slight change of plan. There's a major differences than what you mentioned before. And I'm assuming in a couple of weeks we're going to hear again, oh no, we're going to change the plans again, and we're going to include this and this and this. The minister mentioned that the MP, referring to myself, that I knew about the novel before it became public. I think I made it very clear in my articles. I made it very clear on radio. I said, hey, it's not that I didn't know. I said, the people the minister speaks to in Holland, I have the same, I just left the position, so the same colleagues that you have are the same colleagues that I have, right? MP Sarah Williams, she was on the radio talking about it. I'm assuming you also told the coalition members, because they also were talking about it. So yes, maybe I'm the one the first to make it public, but the fact that you were exploring it and discussed it with colleagues was always there, and you said it in your presentation. So yes, I made it public, because I was trying to be transparent with the public. I was trying to be transparent with your colleagues inside of here who came to me and asked me if I know what a novel is. So yes, I made it public because questions were being posed to me. So yes, I made it public, because I was being transparent. Through you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I asked the minister last time that she was here, who are these stakeholders that she's referring to? We keep referring to stakeholders, and that question was never answered. I asked in regarding to the Teweyo, was there an advice written? Because the minister acknowledged that yes, the Teweyo, they realized was not part of the budget. So now why would the council of ministers, why would the ministers write an advice based on income that does not exist, that went to the governor, had to be nullified? That was my question. Is this true, and what advice was that? That was my question. The minister, through you, Madam Chair, mentioned that effectively the money from Soul Beach is government revenue. No, that's not the case, Minister, because that would mean that the budget right now is still wrong. Because my question to you was, through you, Madam Chair, my question to the minister was, if Soul Beach was paid out of the concession directly by the port or by the airport, but in particular this case the port, because they pay us concessions, that would mean that the government got less revenue out of the concession. So if we were owed 1 million guilders from the port on concession, but the port paid out 200,000 guilders to Soul Beach, that means the government received 800,000 guilders, which means that in the budget, it's wrong. So that means the 2025 budget as is wrong. But I'm not an auditor. You have an auditor in your cabinet, we have an auditor here for MPD Weaver. Let's ask them then if that's correct or not. Minister, in the budget meeting in January, we requested the fourth quarter report, rapportage, and you said that I believe at the time it wasn't ready. I would like to have the fourth quarter rapportage and the first quarter rapportage, and was this already submitted to CFT? A few months ago, I even went to MP Labega. I said, MP Labega, why does the minister just come back and just get us over with? Why are we wasting time? We're going to waste 3 months on this. right? And with confidence, he said, we're going to get it back. We're going to be here in a couple of weeks. And I told him at that time, MP, you know, the longer you take to come back, the worse it's going to get. The longer you take to come back, the worse you're going to get. Why? A budget is a projection. And I'm very interested to know what CFT's remarks are on the budget and the Ravanavis. Because the budget is a projection. So now we're 6 months already into the year. So I can't imagine that the budget that's coming to us next month is going to be based off of a projection and not off of the realities of the last 5 to 6 months. Because we now know what January is. We know the revenues of January. We know the revenues of February. We know the revenues of March. We know the revenues of April and May. So the budget cannot reflect a projection anymore. It has to account the realities of the past few months. But again, I don't know finance and numbers. I'll let the professionals answer that question. So Minister, I'd like to ask through you, Madam Chair, is that correct? The budget 2025, should we include the last 5 months since we now know the realities of where we're going through? And then we only project the following months going forward. Can you confirm if that is true or not? Is that how we should be dealing with this budget? Soul Beach. I asked a question and I said yes, I was misled because we asked questions in December, we asked questions in January. The Minister of TIAT is saying contradicting things that was told to us as members of Parliament. Then, Minister, through you, Madam Chair, how was Soul Beach paid? Exactly how was Soul Beach paid? How much money came from TIAT? How much money came from finance? How much money came from the port and other government entities? Was Soul Beach paid as a subsidy? Because you know, we had comments about misclassifications, because the misclassification of Soul Beach never came up. So was Soul Beach paid as a subsidy? Last time, like I could say it, because last time MP Peterson said, if I need help, ask a real LLM. So I'll ask MP Peterson now, and the Minister, if Soul Beach is an LLC, a company, a US company, how is it possible that Soul Beach can request a subsidy and be paid out a subsidy? And if that's a misclassification, then would we also get that in the upcoming budget 2025? So was Soul Beach paid out a subsidy? Because according to the subsidy ordinance, the entity has to have an established foundation. In the article mentioned, it has to be a nonprofit, basically, foundation to be able to request funds. So that's my question again. Was Soul Beach paid a subsidy? Is Soul Beach a registered company foundation on the island? Did Soul Beach request funds? Did Soul Beach request funds? Or did the government initiate this process? Did this whole Soul Beach advice go through all the proper channels? If Soul Beach was paid out wrong, does this then affect the budget in any way? If Soul Beach was paid out wrong, does this affect the budget in any way? And do we have to request the funds back? Do we have to align the budget differently? Because in essence, if what the different ministers have said, then Soul Beach has broken 3 different laws. The subsidy ordinance, paid out without a budget, because it's not budgeted for, and the compatibility law, because you don't have a lands-based authority to elevate to execute either. So you don't have a legal basis for foundation. You don't have a legal basis because the government ain't signed off. So what was the legal basis to be able to pay out Soul Beach? What was the legal basis to be able to pay out Soul Beach? And again, because none of this comes up in the amendments to come for government. Minister, you mentioned that SOAB, or you would highly recommend SOAB to handle amendments in Parliament. I would like to understand, how do you see that happening? So we have a budget debate, SOAB will sit down with us here in Parliament, and members submit to SOAB, and then they edit for us. How do you see the process of budget amendments happening with SOAB? And Minister, yes, you mentioned that in 2021, the budget was brought in 9 months late, and I am happy that you mentioned that, because you're comparing a natural disaster, COVID, to a time where there's no natural disaster. And I realize that this government is really busy out in fires, out in fires, out in fires, out in fires. But all the fires that you guys are out in, Madam Chair, are the fires that you yourself have caused. All the fires that you are out in are not the fires of the previous administration. They are fires that you yourself have caused. And as MP Doran mentioned, it can't be that the chair mentions that we have ways of holding ministers accountable, and that will be done. And I believe, based on the answers given by the minister today and the budget, we will have to use other tools available to us to continue to hold ministers accountable. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irion. I now look at my list. There is no other speaker yet. Yes, there is another speaker, and that is MP Lacroes. MP Lacroes, you have the floor.
A blessed afternoon once again, Madam Chair Lady and the Minister of Finance. Madam Chair Lady, I'd like to summarize what I understood in the explanation from the Minister of Finance, and if the Minister of Finance could tell me if I understood it properly, okay? The only thing that we're going to get now coming in is the same budget, but the only difference would be the integration of the amendments that were brought by government and Parliament. So I see the minister shaking her head and saying that that is correct, Madam Chair Lady. Then I think the minister, through you, Madam Chair Lady, is setting herself up for a very, very big disappointment. And I'll explain why. During the CC and during the O.E.C, there were suggestions and explanations and questions concerning mistakes in the budget. Were these fixed? And I said it in the beginning of the CC. I said I was going to focus on policies and not the numbers. Madam Chair Lady, through you, to the Minister of Finance, this time I will be revising the numbers. And the first thing I will be looking at is to make sure that all the questions concerning numbers, that they were fixed. So that definitely I would love to know, and save me some time, because if it's the same thing we're getting, then definitely in December we will still not have a passed budget. Then, Madam Chair Lady, the minister asked 3 questions concerning the way moving forward with amendments. I would actually love to get a consensus from Parliament or even government or whatever to find out how we're going to move forward with that, so this doesn't happen again. So those 3 questions, I would love actually to know who should answer those questions, and if it's actually the members of Parliament moving forward, and when, how, and we could do that. Then the Minister of Finance ended with a beautiful speech, one of encouragement, country above and before self, almost 3 months too late, because I said it before. I said, Madam Chair Lady, through you to the Minister of Finance, please come back Even if you don't have all the answers, tell us what you are waiting for. Tell us you cannot figure it out, you are waiting for it to be figured out, and do not cause frustration on the people and the representatives of the people in Parliament. So I hope the minister learns from this experience. If the members of Parliament request a meeting, if you don't have all the answers, through you, Madam Chair Lady, it is simple to say, members of Parliament, it is taking longer, we can't figure it out, I need more time. But to have us writing letters over and over and over and over, it comes across very disrespectful. And we have tried, or at least myself have tried, to always remain respectful while doing the people's work. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacroes. I see MP Ottley making it to the table. So I await his signature on the speaker's list, and then the floor will be given to MP Ottley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable Minister of Finance, I have a few questions. Straight to it. How are bills being paid for 2025? Also, as a member of Parliament, I would like to request the advice from Way for the budget 2025 in the situation that is happening now. Also, was an advice given from CFT. I would like to also request this advice. I also heard the Minister of Finance state that they are awaiting advice from the Council of Advice, and then we will come to Parliament. But once Council of Advice gives their advice, I can guarantee 99% of the time some changes will have to be made, so it will not be a 1, 2, 3 process. Are there any penalties given to us by the Netherlands? Any deadlines? Are we in contradiction of any deadlines? And if not, I would like to know what discussion was had that allow us to surpass any instructions. I'm happy that we don't have any instructions, but I would like to know for future reference. Also, very, very important, Minister of Finance, through you, Madam Chair, I would like to know the remaining budget for each ministry for 2024 pertaining to projects and activities, pertaining to the ability to pay personnel, and also the consultant budget that remains for 2024 budget. That is very important moving forward to ensure that payments, because we don't have a 2025 budget at this moment. Madam Chair, through you, I heard talks of maturity, moving forward, not playing politics. I like to read this. To make mistakes is human. To stumble is a commonplace. But to be able to accept and acknowledge is maturity. And that goes a long way. And I can accept and acknowledge the fact that we can scream unanimous, 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 unanimous how much we want. And I can accept and acknowledge that I gave the government the benefit of the doubt and believe that actually good things could have come in 2025. I can acknowledge that. I'm not one to make excuses. I really believe that good things could have come. And then I hear the minister speak on amendments still having to come after this issue with amendments. Makes me say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So we can sing and say it's coming back with the amendments the same, it's coming back with hopes and scream unanimous left, right, and center, but that don't mean O.E.C. Ottley will approve blindly, because then it will be shame on me. Definitely. Honorable, Chair Lady, I hear the Minister of Finance saying, I decided to come Parliament when I was ready and when I had more information, and it didn't make sense for me to come with lack of information And I remember sitting there and I remember being told that, Minister, you don't really decide your schedule. When Parliament calls, you drop and come. That's what I was told. And I even remember a time a minister had a high blood pressure, was in the hospital, and it was stated the meeting is continuing whether this minister is there or not. But now ministers have the luxury of deciding when they can come and when they want to come. And Honorable Chair, I've seen letters from your person telling the Council of Ministers to respect Parliament. I've even heard that when Parliament gets serious, those are the discussions, those are the things that I'm hearing from the Council of Ministers, when Parliament gets serious. Well, it's time for them to buck up. It's time. Because a meeting request from February to now, for the most important legislation, and we talk about playing politics, it was not playing politics. I can speak for me and my faction. Simply, Madam Chair, come, let us acknowledge what is going on, and let us move forward. But if we can scream and say, let's not play politics when it's beneficial. The hindrance of Budget 2025 hinders everyone. But if we were playing politics, for me, I would stay quiet, because the longer it goes on, the less this government is able to produce, which benefits the opposition. So by calling the minister, sending letters, the MP is reading date upon date upon date, it's to find a solution to move forward so the government can execute, the government can shine, the government can do what it needs to do for the people of St. Martin. That is what you call not playing politics. Not to twist and turn when it's beneficial. So I hope that my few questions can be answered, Madam Chair. And I hope that actually this meeting, I'm looking forward to the budget meeting. Let's get it out of the way. Let's get it done. Let's get it done correctly. And I'm coming into the budget, again, with an open mind. But I don't want that word unanimous be thrown left, right, and center and think that because that is happening, I am going to go blindly and support. Ensure that what is fixed is fixed. And ensure that we can move forward for the benefit of the people of St. Martin. I see an MP said it yesterday, and it's in the headline today. Behind every batch is a family. Behind every payment is a family. Behind every consultant payment is a family. That's the facts that we're dealing with. People of this country. Let us get it done, and get it done correctly, and as soon as possible, Madam Chair, through you. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Ottley. We now have MP De Wever. MP De Wever, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm going to start off by just saying this. I'm definitely not one to stop the party or disrupt one of the biggest things that we enjoy, that we actually just finished enjoying, which ended on Monday night. But I remember when I was on that side, a lot of people on this side wanted to try and mess things up for me to stop the party. And when I mean about stopping the party, I'm talking about stopping the carnival, where when MPs would come in with different amendments of shifting things from marketing to carnival to all over the place, it gets really complicated. And sometimes you're of the opinion that, you know, they'd use things like that to make a mess so that it's hard for you to trace, so that it's hard for you to hold people accountable, so that it's hard for you to actually follow what people are really trying to mislead you on. Now, the reason I say that is because I remember when I had to stand up and put my foot down as a minister and say, no, I'm not going to be bullied by people who want to change things and tell me how to do things, when I know that the right thing is not to stop the party, quote unquote, or the carnival. But today we had two different interruptions to the statements being made by the minister, and it still leaves me confused because I remember when we're talking about the carnival subsidy that the year 2024 was not included as a carnival subsidy. And then the explanation that we received in Parliament was that the SCDF did not request a subsidy. So I had to go pull out one of the MPs who aren't here anymore, their budget from the back to see like where exactly did we put this, and it was indeed correct. There is no subsidy for carnival, because we all know that when we're doing a subsidy, you have to follow the subsidy protocol and the reporting and show that whatever you use in that subsidy is in accordance with the rules that are agreed upon for being given a subsidy. So example is that Heineken Regatta gets a subsidy, Carnival gets a subsidy. They have to report and say, the money that you gave us is restricted for this use, and this is how we used it. So it's interesting then that for 2 years, we did not have Carnival budgeted for as a subsidy, but then it's being paid out somewhere else. And maybe, you know, today I came to the realization because of the 2 interruptions we had by MPs that, well, if we're not doing a subsidy, then what are we doing with the party? What are we doing with the Carnival? Do we continue to pay out Carnival from a marketing budget instead of going to the subsidy? And I just want to know why. Because all the years before, Carnival was paid by a subsidy. But what happened was that Carnival has to provide the reasons why they're receiving that. So just very clearly, now that our party is done, now that our Carnival is finished, how are we going to move forward with providing for Carnival? Because we didn't provide for it last year for 350,000 guilders, I believe. And then this year, in the 2025, we paid out 600,000 guilders, if I'm correct, which is what the minister also stated, not the Minister of Finance, but the Minister of TEAT, I believe, in a press briefing. But I'm so confused as to where we're going with how we do things. So I just want clarification on that as the 3rd MP inquiring about it, please. So I just need to understand going forward, but also maybe it would help Carnival Foundation to know how to go about getting money every Carnival when, you know, some people were complaining about the fact that we only had 1 band at the end of it. So I just want to understand for our cultural event. Thank you very much, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP De Weaver. Members of Parliament, I look at the list. There's no one else signed in. I get a signal, and like I have done for others, I allow MP La Vega to sign the list, and then he would have the floor. MP La Vega, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you to the Minister of Finance and our support staff for explaining the questions posed by the MPs. Given the scope of the situation, yes, we could also say here in hindsight, we would have liked to have the budget finished by now, but the situation is what it is. And what I took positively from the presentation and your explanations is the proactive steps that will be taken between government as well as the members of Parliament in how to ensure that moving forward a situation like this doesn't happen again. As we know, many of us here in Parliament are new, myself included, and having to handle this budget I think about 2 weeks removed from myself swearing in was very challenging. You know, I had to learn very quickly. I conferred with some of my colleagues. Secretariat helped me a lot as well. So I really like the idea of having a set template and also trainings and education giving to the MPs as well as government of what to expect so we could streamline that process and ensure that something like this doesn't happen again. Everything is, a learning process. So let's not hinder on the negative, but focus on the positive moving forward. So I welcome the ideas that you have. I believe you listed 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken. So I look forward to hearing more about that and us deliberating on how to streamline the process in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Labega. The next MP up to speak is MP Wafer. MP Wafer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the Khafir, Honorable Minister, support staff, my honorable colleagues in the hall with me. I just want to thank the Minister for taking the time being here today. A lot of questions were posed, so I'm awaiting to hear the answers. I think one of the MPs stated, of course, the main thing is the actual budget, you know, that we can get that here, that we can finalize that and proceed from that. And as the speaker before me said as well, the mistakes or the issues that occurred, that we can fix them up and then know that for the next budget coming, that will go smoothly, and from then on, you know, we can continue to make history to have it actually here on time and approved. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Wafer. Again, members of parliament, according to the speakers list, there is no other speaker on this topic, and I would then adjourn this meeting briefly for 5 minutes as I then caucus about the continuation of this meeting. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome back to this meeting. This meeting is a public meeting of Parliament based on a request by several members of Parliament to receive an update from the Minister of Finance on the budget 2025 as approved by Parliament and whatever challenges are being faced, were faced by the minister and the government regarding the ratification of that budget. We have received the answers by the Minister of Finance on questions posed by members of Parliament. Previously, we have received the first round of questions by members of Parliament to which the minister will have to respond. Before giving the minister the floor, I want to refer back to especially MP Doran's concern with respect to letters that were submitted by the MP via the Chair of Parliament to the Minister of Finance regarding this very issue. And the Minister of Finance indicated that these answers have been provided to Parliament, and the reason for the longer than anticipated adjournment earlier was to ascertain whether that is the case, and indeed, the answers to the questions by MPs Doran, Irion, and York, they have been received and registered on the IS 700 of this parliamentary year, dated the 12th of March. There was another letter also referred to by MP Doran earlier, and they pertain to the questions from MP Doran, Irion, and York regarding Budget 2025 and government spending limitations. Those answers too have been received by Parliament and those are registered on the IS 873 of the parliamentary year 24-25. However, I take it that the members have not perused these answers or have not perused these answers as registered here at Parliament, and thus the minister will give these answers now verbally, considering that they were asked in this meeting again. However, please take note of the numbers that I mentioned under which these answers are recorded here at Parliament. In addition to that, I don't know, we'll hear from the minister if any other answers can be provided now. However, we will not close this. Of course, we can't close it. We haven't had a second round yet. But in any case, following that by the minister, we will adjourn. And I have asked the minister to do her utmost to return to Parliament next week. And the possibility for that to take place with some changes to our scheduling thus far will be for next week, Thursday. So with that, I will now ask the Minister, one, to provide the answers, and secondly, to whatever other answers as well, in addition to those that we have already received in writing here at Parliament. So I give the floor to the Minister of Finance. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon once again. Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate, because the sentiments expressed was as if I, as minister, do not respond to questions in writing. And it was very clear that February 18th letter submitted by MPs Doran, Irion, and York was responded to on March 12th, which I will be reading shortly, and their letter submitted or dated February 26th was answered on April 10th, 2025. Question one, and since those questions were once again posed by MP Doran, I think publicly, I think it's fitting for me to answer those questions publicly as well. Question 1, what are the specific technical issues that have emerged from the amendments and why were they not foreseen earlier in the process? I would like to refer to the letter sent to Parliament on March 4, 2025, addressed to the Chair of Parliament, in which the technical issues were outlined in detail in Appendix 1. Question 2, can the Prime Minister provide a clear timeline for when the final budget end text will be completed and submitted for publication? The finalization of the budget and the publication of the end text are dependent on Parliament's response to the end text submitted for review. As such, currently no clear timeline can be provided. Next question. Can the government guarantee that these delays will not impact essential government services or financial obligations? The 2025 budget is a key legislative instrument that directly impacts government services and financial obligations. The longer its finalization is delayed, the greater the potential impact on the functioning of government. This is why the annual goal is to have the budget finalized before the start of the new fiscal year. This year, we achieved a significant milestone by having the budget unanimously approved within the first month of the year. However, due to technical issues within the approved amendments, we are now facing a delay in the finalization of the end text and hence publication of the budget. While this situation is unfortunate, it presents an opportunity to learn from these challenges and improve the process going forward to prevent similar delays in the future. Based on Article 16, third paragraph of the National Accountability Ordinance, the budget for 2024 shall serve as the basis for management in order to keep the government service going until the budget 2025 goes into effect. Question 4, what are the exact amendments submitted by the government and Parliament and how do they impact the budget? Please refer to the letter submitted to Parliament on March 4, 2025, and specifically to Annex 3, which outlines the financial impact of the amendments of the 2025 budget. All approved amendments by Parliament are currently within Parliament's possession and have been shared with all members of Parliament during the budget debate. Madam Chair, may I ask for a few minutes, please?
Minister, you're requesting a few minutes adjournment?
Yes.
I will adjourn until 4:20 p.m. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, welcome back. Yes, again, a longer than anticipated adjournment because I just wanted to make sure that what I'm saying about answers having been received by Parliament and sent on to the respective members of Parliament who posed the questions, that information was verified. I got information from the MPs, some of the MPs who had submitted the questions, that actually the questions that were asked here on the floor of Parliament earlier are not the ones that were answered. So, for clarity's sake, the questions regarding from MPs Doran, Irion, and York regarding urgent clarification on budget process and delays, those answers have been received and by Parliament and sent on to those requesting or asking the questions. The questions posed by MPs Doran, Irion, and York regarding the budget 2025 and government spending limitations, those answers have been received and sent on to the respective requestors. So those asking the questions, the MPs who asked the question. That document too is registered under, as I mentioned earlier, 873 of this parliamentary year. The one I referred to earlier regarding urgent clarification on budget process and delays is registered here at Parliament on the IS 700. The questions regarding a request for information regarding the subsidy for St. Martin Carnival 2025 submitted by the members Irion, Doran, and York have been received and are registered here at Parliament on the IS 661 and were sent to the answers were sent by IS 879. So the 661 is the request by the MPs and 879 are the answers as received from the minister. Thus, based on what has been put forward on the floor here of Parliament, the only questions that have just recently been sent, in fact, yesterday, to the minister are those regarding the Jubilee commitments for civil servants. Those have been booked in to be sent and dated yesterday, the 7th of May, to the minister. So the minister had started to give the answers to those questions, which, as I mentioned, 3 of the set of 4 have been answered in writing by the minister, and the one regarding the Jubilee commitments for civil servants have been booked in here by us to go to the minister the 7th of May of this year, which is yesterday. So with that, Minister, I ask you to proceed and read the answers provided to the members of Parliament based on questions posed by those members whose names I just mentioned. Minister, you have the floor. Yes.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair. I will continue with the questions and answers to the letters that was already submitted, but I just want to make it very clear that to state no letters were responded to clearly is not the case, as they were submitted in writing to Parliament, as it was an important matter regarding the budget, and I felt it necessary to respond accordingly. I will continue with question 4, What are the exact amendments submitted by the government and Parliament, and how do they impact the budget? Please refer to the letter. Answer, please refer to the letter submitted to Parliament on March 4, 2025, and specifically to Annex 3, which outlines the financial impact of the amendments on the 2025 budget. All approved amendments by Parliament are currently within Parliament's possession and have been shared with all members of Parliament during the budget debate. Question 5, has the government engaged with the Committee for Financial Supervision, CFT, the Governor, or the Council of Advice regarding these amendments? If so, what feedback was received? Yes, of course. It was important to provide all relevant parties with a status update and a clear explanation of the reasons behind the delay in the 2025 budget. All parties have expressed their support and have also shared their perspectives and advice on the best way forward. However, these were unofficial discussions and as such cannot be shared as formal advice. Nevertheless, the ultimate goal remains the same: to resolve this matter as soon as possible and ensure the publication of the 2025 budget for the legislative trajectory to proceed and for the budget 2025 to be established, published, and enacted. Question 6, how does the government intend to address concerns regarding the constitutional authority of Parliament over the budget, given previous discussions on the role of the CFT? Regarding the role of the CFT in relation to the constitutional budget authority of Parliament, discussions are yet to be initiated in reference to motion number 5, presented by Mr. Franklin Myers, MP Franklin Myers, during the budget 2025 debate. And question 7, what contingency plans are in place if the budget process faces further delays? As previously mentioned, based on Article 16, third paragraph of the National Accountability Ordinance, the 2024 budget will serve as the basis for the financial management to maintain government operations until the 2025 budget officially goes into effect. That was the letter dated March 12th. I now go on to the questions for the letter that was sent April 10th. Will the government make any expenditures or payments based on the proposed 2025 budget despite its lack of ratification and publication? Based on Article 16, the third paragraph of the National Accountability Ordinance, the applicable budget is now the 2024 budget as amended, which is a precedented procedure, as it is common practice that the approval of a budget in January is not achieved for country St. Martin. Question 2. What legal basis is the government using to justify any expenditures based beyond the spending limitations outlined in Article 100? As previously answered, Article 16, third paragraph of the National Accountability Ordinance serves as a legal basis. Next question. If any payments above the threshold of this threshold has been made, were they in alignment with constitutional provisions and Kingdom financial supervision rules? These payments are aligned with the provisions of the Constitution and the Kingdom Act financial supervision regarding the Carnival subsidy for the years 2024 and 2025. Please refer to my letter 5406 of March 2nd, 2025. And last question, can the Minister of Finance provide Parliament with an official statement regarding how government operations are being financed during this period? Once again, please refer to this previous answer regarding Article 16, third paragraph of the National Accountability Ordinance. This comes to the end of those questions posed by MP Doran based on letters that were already submitted. All other questions, as stated earlier by you, Madam Chair, will be answered on Thursday coming. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Minister of Finance, Minister Gums. As I mentioned before, there are 3 sets of written answers here at Parliament regarding the issue of the budget and related items such as carnival payment, and there are other questions on their way to the minister, in addition to the questions posed here on the topic in this meeting of Parliament. Members of Parliament, as I mentioned, this I have asked, and the minister has confirmed her return to Parliament to answer the questions posed by members of Parliament here today, next week, Thursday, time to be confirmed. Until then, this meeting of Parliament, this public meeting of Parliament, will be adjourned after I thank the members of Parliament for their participation, the Minister of Finance and her support staff for their presence here in this meeting and the information provided, and the general public for tuning in to this meeting of Parliament. This meeting of Parliament is hereby adjourned.